Ladies and gentlemen, we often use the words love and attachment interchangeably, but in truth, they are not the same. Love is pure, selfless, and freeing. Attachment, on the other hand, is rooted in dependence, fear, and need. Today, I want to share with you the difference between the two, because understanding this difference is the key to building healthy relationships. Love is about giving, while attachment is about holding. When you love someone, you want the best for them, even if it means letting them go. Love is not possession. It does not seek to control or confine. Instead, love creates space for growth, for freedom, for authenticity. Attachment, however, says, "I need you. Without you, I am incomplete." It clings, it fears loss. It binds the other person with invisible chains. Love empowers. It makes both people stronger, wiser, and more whole. Attachment drains. It creates dependency, anxiety, and fear of abandonment. Love says, "I want you to be happy, even if it's not with me." Attachment says, "I want you to make me happy, and if you don't, I'll suffer." The beauty of love is that it is unconditional. It is not based on what the other can give, but on what you can share. Attachment, however, is conditional. It says, "As long as you fulfill my needs, I will stay." True love is freedom. Attachment is bondage. Love expands your heart, attachment shrinks it. Love opens doors, attachment closes them. So how do we know if what we feel is love or attachment? Ask yourself, am I afraid of losing this person, or am I happy simply seeing them grow? Do I want to control them, or do I want to support them? Is my happiness tied to their presence, or can I celebrate their existence, even from afar? If your answers lean towards fear, control, and dependency, then it is attachment. If your answers lean towards freedom, joy, and selflessness, then it is love. My friends, relationships thrive not when they are built on attachment, but when they are rooted in love. Let us learn to love without clinging, to give without demanding, and to cherish without control. Because only then will we taste the beauty of real, unconditional love. Love is freedom. Attachment is bondage when we talk about love. The first image that often comes to mind is warmth, joy, and connection. But real love is far more than affection or passion. It is freedom. Love is like the open sky, vast, limitless, and liberating. Attachment, on the other hand, is a cage. It disguises itself as love, but it is rooted in fear, insecurity, and the need to control. To understand this better, let's picture a bird. When you truly love a bird, you set it free. You allow it to soar across the sky, to follow its own nature, to sing its own song. You don't demand that it stays on your shoulder every moment of the day. You don't clip its wings out of fear that it might fly away. That is love. It delights in the bird's freedom, even if it sometimes means watching it disappear into the distance. But attachment works differently. Attachment says, "I need you with me at all costs." So we build a cage, place the bird inside, and keep it where we can see it. In doing so, we silence its song, limit its flight, and reduce its beauty to something small and contained. The tragedy is that we call this love, but what it really is fear. The fear of loss, the fear of loneliness, the fear that we are not enough without the other. This same principle applies to human relationships. A person who loves does not demand ownership. Instead, they say, "Be who you are. Grow, change, and live fully, and I will celebrate you for it." A person who is attached, however, says, "Stay who you are for me. Don't change, don't grow away, don't do anything that threatens my comfort." Attachment builds walls. Love builds bridges. Now, let's be honest. Freedom in love can be scary, because freedom means uncertainty. If I let you be free, you might leave me. If I let you change, you might become someone I don't recognize. That is why so many of us cling, control, and hold on too tightly. But here's the paradox. The tighter you grip, the more love slips away. No one thrives under control. No relationship blossoms under suffocation. Think of the healthiest relationships you know. They are not based on constant surveillance, manipulation, or control. They are built on trust. Partners give each other space to be themselves, to pursue dreams, to maintain individuality. That space is not a threat. It is the soil in which love grows. Attachment, in contrast, breeds anxiety. It whispers, what if they find someone better? What if they stop loving me? What if they leave? And so, it pushes us to control, to demand constant reassurance, to chain the other person in subtle or obvious ways. Ironically, it is this very anxiety that often drives people apart. Love is different. Love is calm. Love trusts. Love says, even if you are far away, even if you change, I will honor the beauty of who you are. My love is not about possession. It is about appreciation. When we shift from attachment to love, we move from fear to freedom. Instead of thinking, I cannot live without you, we begin to feel, I am grateful to live alongside you. Instead of trying to control someone's path, we walk with them. Instead of clipping their wings, we celebrate their flight. So let us ask ourselves, in my relationships, am I caging or am I free? Am I building walls or am I building skies? Because real love never imprisons. Real love says, fly, explore, grow, become, and I will still be here celebrating your wings. That is why love is freedom and attachment is bondage. One expands the soul, the other shrinks it. One opens doors, the other locks them shut. And if we dare to choose love over attachment, we not only set others free, we set ourselves free as well. Love is giving, attachment is taking. When we think about love, many of us imagine the warmth of someone's embrace, the joy of being cherished, and the comfort of being understood. But the essence of love is not just in receiving, it is in giving. Love in its truest form is an act of generosity. It is about pouring out kindness, patience, and care without constantly keeping score. Attachment, however, is different. Attachment focuses on taking. It asks, what can I get from this relationship? How will this person meet my needs? How will they complete me? The difference between the two may seem subtle, but in reality, it changes the entire foundation of a relationship. Imagine a parent and a child. A parent who loves gives selflessly, sleepless nights, endless sacrifices, guidance, and protection, not because the child owes them, but because their love overflows naturally. That giving doesn't weaken them, it strengthens them. The more they give, the richer their love becomes. That is the beauty of love. It multiplies when it is shared. Attachment, on the other hand, operates from a mindset of scarcity. It says, I need you to fill the gaps inside me. I need you to make me happy. I need you to validate me. It is less about giving and more about demanding. This creates a cycle of dependency, where one person is constantly draining the other, leaving both exhausted. In friendships, we see this difference too. True love in friendship means celebrating the other's success without jealousy. It means being present in hard times, not because of obligation, but because of genuine care. It means giving encouragement, giving time, giving support, even when there is no immediate return. Attachment in friendship, however, shows up as possessiveness, constant need for attention, or resentment when the other person doesn't meet our expectations. The truth is, love is abundant. It is like a river that never runs dry when it flows freely. The more you give, the more it replenishes itself. Attachment, however, is like a stagnant pond it hoards. It clings, it does not flow. And soon it becomes polluted with fear, resentment, and disappointment. Let's consider romantic relationships. When love leads, each partner asks, how can I add value to your life? How can I help you grow? How can I contribute to your happiness? That kind of love uplifts and empowers. It creates a partnership where both individuals feel stronger because of the other's presence. But when attachment dominates, the questions change. They become, why didn't you make me feel loved today? Why aren't you giving me more attention? Why aren't you doing enough for me? The relationship becomes a transaction, a constant measuring of who is giving more and who is receiving less. And soon, resentment replaces affection. This is why so many relationships falter, not because love disappears, but because attachment overshadows it. When we are focused only on what we can take, we forget the joy of giving, and love cannot survive without giving. Here's the paradox: when you give in love, you actually receive far more than you expected. Giving creates trust, intimacy, and connection. It makes the other person feel valued and seen, and in turn, that builds a bond stronger than any demand could ever achieve. But when you take out of attachment, you may get temporary satisfaction, but you lose the deeper, lasting connection that real love provides. So ask yourself, in my relationships, am I giving or am I only taking? Am I pouring into others or am I constantly drawing from them? Love gives without keeping a ledger. Attachment takes while constantly checking the balance. When we shift our mindset from taking to giving, our relationships transform. We stop looking at people as sources of our happiness and start seeing them as partners in growth. We stop measuring love by what we receive and start experiencing love in what we share. And in that shift, we discover a truth: real love is never depleted by giving, it only grows stronger. Attachment, however, no matter how much it takes, is never satisfied. That is why love is giving and attachment is taking. One enriches the soul, the other drains it. One builds bridges of trust, the other digs holes of insecurity. And when we choose to love by giving, we not only nourish others, we nourish ourselves. Love is unconditional. Attachment is conditional. At the core of every deep relationship lies a simple question: do I love this person for who they are, or do I love them for what they give me? The answer to that question determines whether our bond is true love or mere attachment. Because love, in its purest form, is unconditional, it asks for nothing in return. Attachment, however, is conditional. It places rules, demands, and expectations on the other person, making the relationship fragile and transactional. Unconditional love says, I love you because you are you. It is not dependent on beauty, wealth, convenience, or circumstance. It remains steady through storms, through flaws, through change. Conditional attachment, on the other hand, says, I love you as long as you meet my needs, as long as you fit my picture of what I want, as long as you don't disappoint me. It sounds like love, but it's really a contract. And contracts break when terms aren't met. Think about a child learning to walk. A loving parent doesn't say, I will only love you if you walk perfectly on the first try. No, they encourage, they cheer, they embrace the child after every fall. That is unconditional love. It sees beyond mistakes. It sees potential, growth, and worthiness regardless of failure. But in many adult relationships, conditions creep in. We say things like, I'll stay with you if you always make me happy, or I'll love you as long as you don't change too much, or I'll respect you if you give me what I expect. These statements reveal attachment, not love, because true love does not vanish when comfort fades. Another way to see this difference is in the language of sacrifice. Love sacrifices without resentment. It says, your joy brings me joy, and I can give without losing myself. Attachment sacrifices with a ledger in hand. It keeps score. I did this for you, now you owe me. But real love does not tally favors. It does not keep records of who gave more or who took less. It flows freely. Let's reflect on how this plays out in romantic partnerships. When love is unconditional, partners grow together even when circumstances change. If one succeeds, the other celebrates. If one struggles, the other supports. If distance, time, or challenges arise, love adjusts and adapts. Conditional attachment, however, quickly crumbles under pressure. If one person fails to deliver constant attention, affection, or success, the other begins to withdraw. Love is resilient. Attachment is fragile. Now, someone might ask, but shouldn't relationships have expectations? Isn't it natural to want something back? And yes, relationships do require balance. But balance is not the same as conditions. Expecting respect, honesty, and care is healthy. Those are foundations of love. But demanding that the other person exist only to fulfill your happiness is attachment. The first builds trust, the second breeds control. The beauty of unconditional love is that it allows both people to be fully human. It welcomes flaws, mistakes, and imperfections. It says, I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be real. It embraces growth, even when growth means change. Attachment cannot handle this. It panics when the other person evolves because it fears losing its source of comfort. We can see this clearly in long-term relationships. Couples who love unconditionally stay connected even when youth fades, when careers shift, when life brings trials. Their bond is not tied to external factors. It is rooted in acceptance. Couples who are bound only by attachment, however, often part ways when conditions change. Beauty fades, wealth shifts, personalities evolve, and suddenly the love they thought they had dissolves. So the test for all of us is simple. Can I still love this person if they change? Can I still love them if they cannot give me what I want right now? Can I still love them for who they are, not just for what they provide? If the answer is yes, then it is love. If the answer is no, then it is attachment disguised as love. My friends, the most beautiful relationships are those where love is unconditional, where partners, friends, or family members stand beside one another not because it's easy, not because conditions are met, but because love itself is enough. That kind of love doesn't chain, doesn't demand, doesn't withhold. It simply exists, pure and steady, through every season. That is why love is unconditional and attachment is conditional. One gives life to relationships, the other slowly drains it. One builds trust that lasts, the other collapses when tested. And if we choose unconditional love, we choose freedom, resilience, and a bond that time cannot break. Love brings peace. Attachment brings fear. When we speak of love, we often imagine joy, excitement, and passion. Yet one of the greatest gifts of real love is something quieter, something deeper, peace. Love is like a calm river. It flows steadily, soothing the heart and giving rest to the soul. Attachment, however, does the opposite. It stirs fear, anxiety, and insecurity. It makes us restless instead of calm, doubtful instead of trusting. The difference lies in the foundation. Love is built on trust and acceptance, while attachment is built on insecurity and possession. When you love someone, you feel safe with them. You don't have to constantly question their loyalty or your worth. Love reassures without words. It allows both people to breathe, knowing that the bond is strong and not dependent on fear. Attachment, on the other hand, whispers doubts in your ear. What if they leave me? What if I'm not enough? What if they find someone better? These thoughts create a storm in the mind. Instead of enjoying the relationship, you are constantly scanning for threats, measuring the other's affection, and fearing loss. Think of the difference between sitting by a calm lake and standing in the middle of a storm. Love feels like the lake, steady, refreshing, nourishing. Attachment feels like the storm, loud, chaotic, overwhelming. And the sad truth is, many people mistake the turbulence of attachment for the intensity of love. They believe that jealousy, control, and constant anxiety are proof of deep affection. But in reality, those are signs of attachment, not love. Consider this in romantic relationships. A person in love says, I trust you. I know who you are, and I am at peace with you. Their heart is steady even when distance comes, even when challenges arise, because their love is not built on fear of losing. It is built on joy in giving. But a person in attachment says, I need to know where you are. I need constant reassurance. I'm afraid you'll stop loving me if I'm not perfect. That fear becomes exhausting for both people and often destroys the very relationship it's trying to protect. True love is not blind to difficulties. It doesn't mean you'll never worry, never disagree, never feel vulnerable. But love handles those moments differently. Instead of letting fear control the relationship, love approaches challenges with trust and calm. Love says we may not have all the answers, but I believe in us. I believe in you. That creates peace, even in uncertainty. Attachment, however, magnifies problems. A late reply to a message becomes proof of rejection. A busy season at work becomes evidence of neglect. A small disagreement becomes a crisis. Attachment thrives on fear, and fear magnifies every crack into a fracture. Let's also think about friendships. Love in friendship is peaceful. You may not talk every day, but when you meet, it feels natural. You don't fear losing them just because they have other people in their life. Attachment in friendship, however, is filled with fear. Why didn't they call me? Why are they spending time with someone else? Do they care about me less? Instead of joy, the relationship becomes a source of tension. Here is the paradox. Peace in love actually strengthens relationships, while fear in attachment weakens them. When you give peace, you build trust. When you spread fear, you build walls. So how do we cultivate peaceful love instead of fearful attachment? The answer lies within. When we learn to love ourselves, when we know our worth, we stop clinging to others for validation. Then we can approach relationships from a place of calm instead of desperation. Love begins with inner peace, and from that, it flows outward. My friends, the presence of fear is a sign of attachment, not love. The presence of peace is a sign of love, not indifference. Real love will calm you, not consume you. It will quiet your insecurities, not amplify them. It will give you rest, not rob you of it. That is why love brings peace, and attachment brings fear. One builds trust and freedom. The other builds anxiety and chains. And when we choose love, we do not just bring peace to others, we bring peace to our own hearts. Love creates gardens, attachment creates prisons. One of the most powerful ways to understand the difference between love and attachment is through imagery. Love is like a garden, vibrant, alive, and full of growth. Attachment, however, is like a prison, confined, rigid, and suffocating. Both may hold people together, but the experience is drastically different. In a garden, each flower grows in its own rhythm. Some bloom quickly, others slowly. Some reach tall, others stay close to the earth. The gardener does not demand uniformity. Instead, they nurture. They water, provide sunlight, and remove weeds, allowing every flower to flourish according to its nature. That is love. Love nurtures without forcing. It gives space for individuality. It delights in diversity and growth. In a prison, however, there is no space for individuality. Everything is controlled, locked, and limited. That is what attachment does to relationships. It says, stay here, don't grow beyond what I can control. Don't change in ways that threaten my comfort. It may keep the person close, but it kills their spirit. Over time, they stop blooming and begin withering. Consider a healthy romantic relationship. When love is present, both partners feel free to pursue dreams, passions, and personal growth. One may study, the other may work. One may travel, the other may create, and both celebrate each other's journeys. That love becomes like a garden, each individual blooming, while together they create something even more beautiful. Now imagine attachment in the same scenario. One partner says, don't travel because I'll feel lonely. Don't pursue your passion because it might take time away from me. Don't grow in that direction because I might lose control. At first, this may look like devotion. But in reality, it is confinement. Instead of a flourishing garden, the relationship becomes a prison where growth is restricted and freedom is lost. Friendships tell the same story. A friend who loves is like a gardener. They encourage, they water your dreams, they celebrate your victories. They are not threatened by your success. In fact, your growth makes the friendship richer. But a friend who is attached becomes controlling. They might say, why are you spending time with others? Why are you changing? Why don't you give me the same attention as before? That friendship stops being a garden and starts feeling like a cage. The tragic irony of attachment is that it seeks closeness but destroys it. A garden makes people want to stay because it's a place of life and beauty. A prison forces people to stay, and eventually they long to escape. Love attracts through freedom. Attachment repels through control. Here's the deeper truth. When we create gardens in our relationships, we ourselves become gardeners of life. We inspire others to grow, and in the process, we grow too. But when we build prisons, we not only confine others, we confine ourselves. We become jailers of our own fears, trapped in cycles of jealousy, insecurity, and mistrust. So the question becomes, am I building a garden or a prison in my relationships? Do the people I love feel free to be themselves, to grow, to dream, to change? Or do they feel restricted, fearful, and confined? To choose love is to become a gardener. It is to water with kindness, shine light with encouragement, and give space with trust. It is to delight in growth, even when that growth means change. To choose attachment is to become a warden, guarding out of fear, limiting out of insecurity, and demanding out of need. My friends, let us choose to be gardeners, not wardens. Let our relationships be gardens, places of beauty, freedom, and growth. Because when love creates gardens, both souls bloom. But when attachment creates prisons, both souls suffer. That is why love creates gardens and attachment creates prisons. One nurtures life, the other starves it. When we learn to cultivate love like a garden, we will discover the most beautiful flowers of hope, trust, freedom, and joy. Ladies and gentlemen, we have journeyed through the 5 key differences between love and attachment. We have seen that love is freedom, while attachment is bondage. Love is giving, while attachment is taking. Love is unconditional, while attachment is conditional. Love brings peace, while attachment brings fear. And finally, love creates gardens, while attachment creates prisons. When we step back and look at these lessons together, a profound truth emerges. Love is expansive, liberating, and life-giving. Attachment, though it disguises itself as love, is ultimately rooted in fear, insecurity, and control. It may look like closeness, but in reality, it is confinement. It may feel intense, but in reality, it is fragile. Why is this distinction so important? Because every relationship in our lives, romantic, familial, or friendship, will be shaped by whether we choose love or attachment. If we choose attachment, we will constantly battle fear of loss, jealousy, and dissatisfaction. No matter how much the other person gives, it will never feel enough because attachment always craves more. But if we choose love, we will experience relationships that bring peace, joy, and resilience. Love does not collapse under pressure because it is not built on fear. It is built on freedom and trust. Think about it. A parent who loves unconditionally gives their child space to grow, even when it means letting them walk their own path. A partner who loves deeply supports their beloved's dreams, even when those dreams take them far away. A friend who truly loves celebrates your growth, even if it changes the rhythm of the friendship. This is love. It expands, it uplifts, it allows, but attachment does the opposite. It clings, it demands, it says, stay the same, don't change, don't grow in ways that make me uncomfortable. In doing so, attachment shrinks both people. It creates anxiety instead of trust, fear instead of peace, confinement instead of freedom. The irony is that attachment seeks security, but it destroys it. Love, on the other hand, may feel risky because it allows freedom, but it creates the deepest security of all, the security of being loved for who you are, not for what you can provide. So the real question we must ask ourselves is this: am I loving or am I attaching? When I hold on tightly, is it because I truly love or because I fear being alone? When I give, is it freely or am I secretly keeping score? When I say, I love you, do I mean I see you and accept you, or do I mean I need you to complete me? These questions are not easy, but they are essential, because until we answer them honestly, we will confuse attachment for love, and we will suffer the consequences. The good news is that we can choose differently. We can learn to love without clinging, to give without demanding, to support without controlling. We can replace fear with trust, conditions with acceptance, prisons with gardens. This is not easy. It requires self-awareness, maturity, and courage. But the reward is extraordinary. When we choose love, we not only transform our relationships, we transform ourselves. We become calmer, freer, more compassionate. We stop seeking to fill our emptiness through others, and instead we share our fullness with them. Love teaches us that we are already whole, and from that wholeness we connect with others in joy, not in desperation. My friends, attachment will always whisper, "Hold tighter, control more, don't let go." But love will always whisper, "Trust, allow, celebrate, and set free." One leads to suffering, the other to peace. One limits, the other expands. One imprisons, the other liberates. So let us choose love. Let us love with open hands, not clenched fists. Let us love with generosity, not demands. Let us love with trust, not fear. And when we do, we will discover that true love is not only the most beautiful gift we can give others, it is the most beautiful gift we can give ourselves. Thank you.